Today's topic is the biology of beliefs, and it's something that I had read a long time ago, and it just kind of fit into what we've been doing lately about, do you remember my mantra when I first got here? I told you I have a mantra. We have got to change the way that we see things, because perception is really important. So there's a saying, it says, give a man a fish, and he will eat for a day. Show a man 2 fish, and he will eat for the rest of his life. I think we've all heard this. And where does it come from? From the come of the Bible? Well, there's a lot of fish stories and fishermen and fishers of men stories in the Bible, but it's not from the Bible. It's a Chinese proverb. And I think we all get an idea what it means, but I looked it up and it says, it is of more worth and longer lasting to teach someone to be independent rather than to give them temporary support. Now, I would agree with that, and I think you probably would too. And I wanted to start the lesson this way this morning because it's important to reiterate that in Unity, this is what we're trying to do. We want you to spiritually learn to fish, which is to say, to think for yourself, to take responsibility for your own spiritual journey, to find your own path, and to realize that you are the master of your fate, a powerful co-creator of the universe. Now that's changing the way you see things. And on page 17 of the book, 5 Principles, and by the way, I'll be doing the 5 Principles, maybe in September when everybody gets back. Reverend Ellen Davenport says, she calls a section that she writes, says, God for grown-ups. So it's kind of something like that. And now the view that we are having an interactive experience with the universe is a major difference of the way that we're beginning to see things. And I can't overemphasize how important this is. And I'm sure I don't think I mentioned in the last few times, but one of the books said that we've actually, in our conscious evolution, we have become co-creators with the universe. We're part of the creation process. We can't separate ourselves from it anymore. Creation is not something that's happening around us. It is something that we are making, that we are creating. And this realization of this creative power, this massive creative power that we have should take your breath away. And if it doesn't, hold on. It will. So one day it's just boom, and it will. Last week I finished a series of talks about how we've been evolving and changing and going through stages individually as well as humanity. And I refer to as taking a trip to the mountaintop, going up there and just to a higher elevation and looking at things of where we've been, where we are, and where we may be going type thing. And hopefully it gave us all a better understanding of this journey, this infinite spiritual journey that we are on. And what got me going in that direction was I had been wanting to share the very first lesson I ever did in Unity. And the minister was going on vacation, and I was the president of the board, and he says, try to keep it light. And I went, yeah, I can do that. Sure, light it is. So what did I call it? I called it the reconciliation of science and religion. I was trying to keep it light. I don't know how to keep things light. I don't know if you've noticed that or not. The general theme of the talk was that early on in our human experience, we didn't have this schism view understanding of life, where there was heaven and there is earth. It was more of a continuum type thing. That's what they thought. But along comes Christian doctrine and set forth the idea of separation. And then came along Newtonian physics and just sealed the deal on separation completely. Now, Newtonian physics, fantastic as it is, converted the universe into a physical machine, because all the formulas and everything he uses for his differential equations or whatever, calculus and everything else he made up. How do you make this stuff up? I can't even understand it if you explain it to me, let alone making it up. Anyway, only took into account physical properties. That's it. Everything else, they called it only matter matters. And this is important to understand because everything non-physical, spirit or any talk of anything, such a thing, was eliminated from the equations. And thus, in effect, God was removed from the universe. And the mission for science became dominate and control. And that's what Bruce Lipton talks about in this, dominate and control. And it was also the time of the Darwinian evolution, about survival of the fittest. And bottom line, these things that fell in what we were talking about, the stages, the modern stage, reduced us to powerless victims in an alien universe. That's who we became. And this position had a 300-year stronghold on us, on humanity. Because, and at the human level, this science, this Newtonian physics had the foundational in what's called the medical model. The medical model is what doctors and everybody uses, even to this day, their approach to medicine. That we too, like the universe, are machines, biochemical machines. And so they take the approach that that's how they heal us. So they have two tools, pills and surgery. That's it. That's all they got in the whole toolbox. And so along comes Dr. Bruce Lipton. You're familiar with Lipton, right? Everybody, a lot of people probably good. And Dr. Lipton is a biologist, and he was working on stem cells back in the 60s. And sometime later, he became a teacher of medicine at the University of Wisconsin, teaching the medical model. But along the way, he started to realize that what he was teaching and what he was doing experiments in was not consistent, because he started reading about a different kind of science, about quantum physics. And he said, this is not the way things are going. What we're telling people is not the way things are at all. So science began to take on a new stage of development. And this 300-year hold, when they really felt that they had a solid understanding of everything, really started falling apart. And so quantum physics just blew that all completely out of the water. So back to Dr. Lipton and this micro world of very strange acting particles. He began to experiment, and he said, I can't do this anymore. I cannot teach medicine traditionally, knowing what I know about things. And so he had to resign, and he moved on, and he began a whole new way of looking at things. And today's topic is the biology of beliefs. Now think about that topic. The central question is, what do our beliefs have to do with our biology? And the answer is everything. Everything. The fact is that our beliefs do influence, affect, and even change, he says, our biology. That's how strong our beliefs are. Our body responds to our thoughts. And that's what we teach in Unity. So we're kind of ahead of the ball, but science is catching up a little bit. And modern medicine has begun to recognize this, the importance of both the patient and the doctor. Because we have this reverence of doctors. Now, my wife works in a hospital for 40 years. And you know, a doctor walks in and tells you something, you believe them. And that's key to this. But things are starting to change. And here's the funny thing. The effects of what we believe, both positive and negative, manifest in our lives, whether it is true or not true. That's the strange part. Now, let me show you an example. You're walking down, you're in a big city, walking down the street, middle of the night. The lights are kind of flickering. You can't see very well. And so you look around and you're like, gosh, I'm the only one out here. And then you see something that looks like a man in the distance, a rather big man. And then you notice, like, Is he holding something in his hand? Is that a gun? What starts to happen? You start getting into this strange feeling. Your heart rate goes up, your blood pressure goes up, you start to sweat, and you get into the perception of danger. So what happens is that you enter what is called the fight or flight mode. And Dr. Lipton tells us we only have two modes, fight or flight or growth. That's it. And when you're in fight or flight, your body prioritizes your body, and it sends adrenaline to your arms and your legs, to everything that has to do with getting the heck out of where you are. And so what happens to the growth at the time? It is shut down, essentially. It's shut down. And so all of a sudden, everything changes, though, because the lights come back on, and you see that it's just a pile of trash. And that's all it was. But what just took place? You reacted to what you perceived, to your perception. And that's key to this whole belief stuff. Was the danger real? No, the danger wasn't real. But was your reaction to that danger real? Yes, it was. Because why? Because you believed it. You believed it was real, and your body responded accordingly. What's the point here? That the body neither cares. He says the body doesn't care or is concerned with whether what you're seeing or you think you're seeing is real or not real. It doesn't matter. It responds to your perception of it. That's what it responds to. And he said the cells, so he gets down to the cell level and he says the cells have receptors. And they're feeling what the environment is all the time. And so they're adjusting to whatever the environment is. Our biology changes, the cells change according to the environment. And the biggest influence that that the cell has is us, our thinking, our thoughts. So the question is, what are you telling your cells? Are you buying into illness? Are you buying into limiting thoughts? Do you question your ability to heal yourself? I read somewhere the guy says, be careful what you think. Your cells are listening. Really? And we're knowing this now. But you know, we all need help. This is why we're here, because we all need help with this. Why? Because just think about everything I just said about the environment and reacting to the environment. What environment did we grow up in? I grew up in an environment where we were pitiful sinners, born flawed, in need of a savior. This is the environment. What do you think that's doing to me, to my cells, and to my entire being? This is not a good way to grow up. It really isn't. But let me put a couple of key points together here. Because I told you before that there's two general modes that you can be, growth and protection, fight or flight. Can't be in both. And so, generally speaking, and obviously, we want to be in the growth state. Sure you do. Because that's where we flourish. But and the protection mode is only made to be temporary, to get yourself away from that saber-tooth tiger or whatever it is that's chasing you. You know, you get all this energy, and the mission is to get out. But once you do, you start to get out of that protection mode, and you need to. Because what happens, see, this is where it starts to fall together. What happens when you don't? What happens when you're in an environment, and thank you, Penny, for bringing that up, because I was going to do the same thing. When you turn on the TV, and you see that Kim, whatever his name is, at Korea, wants to push the button of a nuclear bomb. Or that Putin is doing this. Or that our politics are crazy. Or all this other stuff. We get ourselves into a stress mode. And what's a stress mode? Fight and flight. And when you're there, where are you not? You're not in a growth state. Do you see how this works? And why? Because that's what you believe. That is your perception of the world. That is why it's so important for us to come here and kind of get into this spiritual hot tub. I like spiritual hot tub. We need that re-energizing. Like Penny says, it's so easy to get away from, we know what the truth is. In your hearts, everybody knows what the truth is. But we see all these things to the contrary. And it just is so easy to get off course. It's very, very difficult. This is why we practice mindfulness. Another thing that Dr. Lipton says is that 95% of the time, we're operating from the subconscious mind. 95% of the time. And the subconscious mind, now that we know about computers, we can say that the conscious mind is a processor, and the subconscious mind is a processor. Only the conscious, and then you got your superconscious mind. Well, he says the subconscious mind operates at 1,000,000 times more capacity than the conscious mind. That's why you can drive, I said before, from here to, to Round Rock or something, talking to somebody about something, and all of a sudden, like, where are we? You're completely in subconscious mind. And it's so much powerful that it can get you, that it can do this. But, so, Lipton says, I'm not a religious man, but when he started unfolding all these things, he realized that, gosh, this was what Jesus was saying. Jesus was saying the same thing. What do you believe? Your faith has made you well. That one time when the two blind men come up to him and say, Master, Lord, will you heal us? What does he say to them? Do you believe? Do you believe? Why? Because without their belief, without their participation, it's not going to happen. You have to be part of the process. Healing starts from within. And that's where it starts to change. All things are possible, it says, for those who believe. Belief is everything, because that's what changes everything. It changes the environment, it changes our chemistry, it changes our world, it changes everything. What do you believe? So this book, that one CD is like 8.5 hours long. So to condense it to 20 minutes, I'm trying to just pick out some points here and there. But the problem is that we've grown up, as I said, with a lot of misconceptions, both from science and religion. Science told us, religious told us that we were separate from God and everybody else. And science tells us that we're separate from nature and everything else, and that we're victims of our environment, and that we have genes that control us, and we didn't pick our genes, and we can't change our genes. But Dr. Lipton comes along and says, that's not true. Those are all misconceptions from before. Lipton says we can change our genes. Now, to us, that sounds like, what do you mean change your genes? How many times have we brought up, you can't change your genes? Yes, you can, according to Lipton. You can change anything. We're that kind of powerful creatures. We just don't know it, and we don't believe it because the same reason. We weren't brought up thinking that. We got to really work on this. So anything. And remember about that thing, only matter matters? Well, turns out there's really no such thing as matter in the first place. Right there? It's kind of just, I said before, matter exists on a need-to-exist basis. It exists for a little bit while you need something or want to have an experience or something, and then it's gone, boom. So remember that we live in an interactive universe. This is really fundamental, and we need to remember that and be mindful of our perceptions, be mindful of our beliefs, and be mindful of what we take in. Let those other thoughts just fly by because you really don't need them. You really don't. They're of no good to you. So I want to leave you with one thought that I said a little while ago. Watch your thoughts. Your cells are listening to you. What did Myrtle Fillmore do? She changed her biology through her thoughts. Have a great week.